The first speaker is Ms. Jutta Paulus. Ms. Paulus is a Greens EFA party member of the European Parliament, but she was previously first involved in healthcare as a practicing pharmacist for nearly 2 decades. In her current position in the European Parliament, she serves on several committees, including Environment, Public Health and Safety, Food Safety, and Industry, Research and Energy. And she is also a global vaccine access advocate. And I'll hand it back to Alex and Ms. Paulus.
Yes, thank you very much for organizing this event, and thank you very much for having me. I think it is tremendously important to have a different approach to vaccines than what we have seen in the past, because right now, as you have pointed out, the larger part of the world does not have any access to vaccines, although they are, at least in part, being hit much more than the industrialized world. And you have also highlighted in your introduction that the main bottleneck is, of course, the clinical studies. And as the RaDVaC approach is aiming to have, let's say, a non-discriminatory approach to vaccines, so no patents here. Of course, this is extremely difficult when it comes to the financing of clinical trials, because everyone who is interested in this vaccine will say, well, why should I invest millions or hundreds of millions if anyone can use the results from my research and provide a nasal vaccine to the market by themselves? So I try to discuss this problem with the European Medicines Agency, and they said, yeah, that's a problem. But if you have anyone who's interested, then we could provide help on study protocols and all that. Okay, great. Then I tried it with DG Sante, which is the Ministry of Health, so to speak, from the European Union, and saying, well, isn't there a possibility through, for example, the HERA incubator, which is a specialized fund which the European Commission set up in order to be able to have access to innovative medication, especially for COVID, but also for other diseases. And there again, they said, well, if you have anyone who is applying for market authorization and will set up the clinical studies, then we can support him or her. Well, great, but we don't have a market authorization holder because no one's interested due to the backing patents. So the next step now is that I've written a rather longish letter to the WHO, asking them if they could not be the sponsor for a clinical study that actually does this very important work in order to have a real proof, a scientific proof that nasal vaccines like the RaDVaC one are working. I have not found so much support, I must say, in the European Parliament. Among my own group, surely, I mean, the Greens are rather patient-oriented than patent-oriented. But in the other groups, there is a big concern that the pharmaceutical companies might be stripped of their profits, and then they would no further invest in research and development. But I think if we have learned anything from this pandemic, then it's only over when it's over for everyone. And there are so many other global problems which we cannot leave to the market, because the market has failed on these global problems quite openly, if I may say so, just looking at the climate crisis or the biodiversity crisis, which is even worse, and where market-based solutions have not brought us anywhere. So as said, I was trying to find a solution within the European Union, have not succeeded. So I did learn that there are some approaches already in European countries where people have tried to design also nasal vaccines, but they are facing basically the same problems. They need someone who's financing the clinical studies, and having worked in a lab doing research myself, I know how much effort goes into the scientific knowledge and also why it is so expensive. So I'm happy to learn whether we have any possibility to find support here, be it from NGOs, be it from the WHO, or be it from maybe someone from industry who says, well, never mind, if I get proper funding by a public body, then I will co-sponsor such a clinical study and will at least try to provide more vaccines to the world. And one last point on the nasal vaccines. I think what's really, really good about this approach is that you are inducing the immune response at the point of entry, which the virus is also taking. So by vaccinating people the classical way in the bloodstream, vaccinated people may stay infectious and may pass on the disease, although not falling ill themselves. And that is something that probably would not be as dangerous when really inducing the immune response in the mucosa of nose and throat. And that's, as far as I understood it, I'm absolutely no immunologist. I have only very limited medicinal knowledge. That's the big advantage of the nasal vaccines. And congratulations to the RaDVaC team for inventing this and for doing this very, very important work. One last point on patents. I do think that we have to give people a reward for their scientific research, for their work, for also the costs that come with research. But that cannot come on the cost of the health of people. And while we had this approach when it came to HIV medication, where the TRIPS waiver was actually invented for, I think we should do this dual approach. On the one side, work toward a patent-free vaccine, but on the other side, try to loosen the patent, the IP rights, in order to be able to react to future diseases, which will inevitably come more quickly than we have done now. Thank you very much.